The story begins in an ordinary setting. Tom, a security guard, sits at his booth at a quiet, nearly empty mall. It's late at night and his shift is uneventful. A frail elderly woman named Mrs. Ellison walks into the parking lot struggling with a large bag. Tom, in his boredom, laughs quietly at her slow pace, dismissing her as just another frail old woman. He watches her pass the security booth, her movements awkward but not enough to raise suspicion. Tom's smugness contrasts with his indifference to the woman's discomfort, but he quickly forgets about her as the night drags on. As hours pass, the mall empties, and Tom notices Mrs. Ellison again, standing in the parking lot, her posture now oddly stiff. Tom brushes off the feeling of unease that creeps up on him, attributing it to the late hour. However, when he notices a shadowy figure near her, the atmosphere shifts. The figure vanishes as quickly as it appears, but Tom's unease grows. Something feels off about the situation now. As Tom steps outside to check on Mrs. Ellison, the quiet of the night is pierced by eerie silence, and the chill in the air sends a shiver down his spine. He approaches her, calling out gently, but she doesn't respond. Her eyes are wide open, staring at the darkened parking lot, her body unnervingly still. A sense of dread begins to take root in Tom's chest, but he shakes it off, thinking she's just confused or lost. However, as he gets closer, he notices a faint, unnatural movement behind her, just enough to make him stop in his tracks. There, standing in the shadows, is a figure partially obscured by the darkness. The figure quickly vanishes, disappearing into the night. Tom's pulse quickens. Why is Mrs. Ellison just standing there? Where did that figure go? His concern for her deepens, and he steps closer to her, trying to gently rouse her from her trance-like state, but she doesn't react. The longer he stares at her, the more something doesn't feel right. Her features seem frozen, her expression too blank. Tom tries to shake off his growing sense of panic, but then he hears a strange noise coming from the direction of the mall entrance. It's a soft rustling, like whispers carried by the wind, though there's no one around. The hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Something's wrong. Tom's sense of unease grows with every passing second. He turns away from Mrs. Ellison and heads toward the mall's darkened corridors. The mall, once a place of constant foot traffic, now feels like an abandoned, hollow space. He's never felt it this cold before. His footsteps echo too loudly in the silence. The whispers he heard earlier seem to follow him, growing louder the deeper he ventures. His mind races, trying to rationalize what he's feeling, but the strange energy in the air is undeniable. He follows a trail of signs that seem to lead him toward the back of the building. Tom stumbles upon an old maintenance door that he's sure he's never noticed before. It's ajar, but there's a strange metallic smell coming from within, and the faintest glimmer of light shines through the gap. He hesitates, unsure whether to continue, but his growing concern for Mrs. Ellison pushes him forward. He steps through the door into a dimly lit, forgotten hallway. The hallway is narrow and feels endless. Strange, cryptic symbols are painted on the walls, and the air smells of something foul. As he rounds a corner, he stumbles upon a hidden room. Inside, he uncovers a horrifying truth about the mall's past. In its dark, twisted underbelly, an illegal operation involving missing persons and unexplainable activities. Tom's heart pounds in his chest as he absorbs the horrifying reality. The hidden room is filled with disturbing evidence. Photos, documents, and old dusty files that point to something far darker than he could have ever imagined. It's clear that Mrs. Ellison is involved in something far beyond her innocent appearance and the mysterious figures he's seen are part of an underground network that has been operating in the shadows for years. Tom realizes the mall has been a cover for illegal activities, with people disappearing and being exploited for twisted purposes. His thoughts race as he tries to piece together the puzzle, but a chilling realization hits him. He's in too deep. The door slams shut behind him, and the whispers intensify, turning into harsh, grating voices. Panic rises in Tom as he tries to escape, but the hallway seems to stretch endlessly, twisting and bending like a labyrinth. The familiar layout of the mall is now foreign, and every step feels like it's pulling in deeper into the unknown. As he moves frantically through the corridors, he notices that the faces of the men he thought were shadows are now all around him, watching him, waiting. He knows he's being hunted, and the terrifying truth hits him. He's become a part of something he never should have laughed at. His only choice now is to confront what he's uncovered, or risk being consumed by the darkness. Tom's mind races as the shadows close in around him, his breath coming in shallow gasps. The once familiar mall is now a maze of unfamiliar corridors, each one twisting further into the darkness. His earlier laughter at Mrs. Ellison now feels like a distant, foolish mistake, and a deep sense of regret gnaws at him. He realizes that the more he tries to escape, the deeper he is pulled into the hidden world beneath the mall, a world he can't ignore anymore. The whispers are louder now, echoing through the hallway like a chorus of warning voices. Tom's thoughts flicker between fear and clarity. He's no longer sure if he's hearing the voice voices of the men chasing him, or if the fear itself is speaking. As he turns another corner, he spots something that makes his blood run cold. A hidden door marked with the same cryptic symbols from earlier. It's a door to the unknown, and despite his fear, Tom knows that he has no choice but to go through it. With trembling hands, he pushes the door open, revealing a chamber filled with strange, eerie lights and high-tech equipment. As he steps inside, he finds something even more disturbing. There are people here bound and unconscious, connected to the strange operation he's uncovered. They're the missing people, the ones he thought were just rumors, but before he can make sense of it, the door slams shut behind him, and he hears the sound of footsteps approaching. The door slams shut with a deafening thud, sealing Tom inside the dark chamber. His pulse quickens as he spins around, realizing he's trapped with no way out. The only sounds now are the low of machinery and the distant, unsettling noises from behind the walls. Tom feels his stomach churn, his breath shallow as panic begins to take over. The people around him, unconscious and hooked up to the strange equipment, are eerily still, their faces pale and lifeless. Tom knows he has to act fast, but his mind is clouded with fear. He spots a control panel near the wall filled with buttons and screens. It'd be the key to stopping whatever is happening here. He approaches it cautiously, knowing every second counts, but before he can make sense of the controls, he hears the unmistakable sound of footsteps. They grow louder, closer. Tom's heart skips a beat. The men who had been following him are here. His time is running out. Desperately, Tom scrambles to find a way to shut down the operation or escape the room, but everything seems to be locked down. A sharp metallic click echoes from the corner of the room, and the shadowy figures materialize in the doorway. Tom stands frozen, trapped between two terrifying choices: confront the unknown and try to stop it or run, and risk never getting out alive. Tom's hands tremble as he faces the shadowy figures in the doorway. The cold realization settles in. He is outnumbered and trapped, but something inside him refuses to give in. He can't let these people suffer like the ones before him. His mind races for a solution, his only hope lying in the mysterious control panel. His eyes dart between the equipment and the advancing men, who have their cold, menacing gazes fixed on him. In a split second, he makes his decision. He runs toward the control panel, slamming his hand down on the first button. He sees the lights flicker and the machinery whirs to life. A moment of hope flares inside him. He thinks he's triggered a shutdown. But then the entire room lights up with a sickly green glow, and the walls start to vibrate. The men grow silent, their expressions twisted into grim determination. They know what's happening. It's too late. Suddenly, one of the men steps forward, a tall, imposing figure. You should have stayed out of this, he says, his voice low and threatening. The room fills with an overwhelming sense of dread. Tom's heart races as he realizes that the operation he's tried to stop was more than just an illegal activity. It's part of something far larger and more sinister. As the men close in, Tom knows he's running out of time. He must fight back, but will his actions be enough to break free? Tom's mind races as the tall figure moves closer, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He's made the choice to fight, but every instinct tells him that the odds are stacked against him. The green light flickering around him seems to pulse with the rhythm of his own heartbeat, an ominous reminder that the world is trying to escape from his closing. And he spots a nearby shelf stacked with equipment. Perhaps a weapon, perhaps something that can help him disrupt the operation. With quick, desperate movements, he grabs a metal rod from the shelf and swings it at the advancing men. The first figure falters, but the second grabs Tom by the arm, slamming him into the cold, hard floor. The impact knocks the breath from his lungs, but Tom doesn't stop. He struggles to get back on his feet, his adrenaline spiking. He knows he can't keep this up forever, but he has to keep fighting. He has to find a way out. The machinery around him continues to, its strange energy growing stronger. Tom's eyes dart to the control panel, still glowing with an eerie light. Could he disable it somehow? Could he destroy it before it's too late? Suddenly he hears a loud crash. The room shakes. Something has gone wrong, and Tom realizes that his only chance is to make a final, frantic push toward the control panel. But it's not just the men he needs to worry about anymore. There's something else, something much darker. Tom's heart pounds as the room continues to tremble, the unsettling of the machinery growing deafening. The air feels thick with impending danger. The shadowy figures approach, but they're no longer the only threat. Something else, something far darker, is now awake. The ground beneath him shakes with each passing second, and the eerie green light pulses faster, almost as if it's alive. Tom realizes too late that disabling the control panel may have triggered something far worse than just the men. He's unleashed a force that has been dormant for years, a force that's been controlling everything. In his desperation, Tom races toward the control panel, his movements frantic. The machinery is starting to malfunction, lights flashing erratically as if the entire system is spiraling out of control. But with each passing moment, the ground beneath his feet grows more unstable, and the air thickens with a suffocating presence. It's as if the very walls are closing in on him. Tom's mind is racing. He can't let this force consume him, but can you really stop it? With the men closing in and the unseen force growing stronger, Tom's only choice is to confront the true power behind the operation. He reaches for the final lever in the control panel, knowing that pulling it could either stop everything or seal his fate forever.